Well, a five-alarm fire. That's how Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer describes the dramatic rise in anti-Semitism right here in America since October 7th. Senator Schumer is the highest-ranking Jewish official in American history, and he spoke from the Senate floor about the harsh rhetoric against Israel and the Jewish people. Such talk is also heard inside the walls of Congress. Well, CBN Washington correspondent Jenna Browder reports.
I am speaking up to issue a warning informed by lessons of history too often forgotten. No matter what our beliefs, no matter where we stand on the war in Gaza, all of us must condemn anti-Semitism with full-throated clarity wherever we see it before it metastasizes into something even worse.
Majority Leader Schumer warned against blaming Jews for Israeli policy and cautioned not to allow criticism of government to turn into something much darker.
Some of the most extreme rhetoric against Israel has emboldened anti-Semites who are attacking Jewish people simply because they are Jewish.
Schumer said younger Americans especially seem to be jumping to support a cause and message they don't understand.
I believe there are plenty of people who chant from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, not because they hate Jewish people, but because they support a better future for Palestinians. But there is no question that Hamas and other terrorist organizations have used this slogan to represent their intention to eliminate Jewish people, not only from Israel, but from every corner of the earth.
The Majority Leader's address comes as a growing number of government officials and federal workers are criticizing President Biden's support of Israel and its war on Hamas.
We are congressional staffers on Capitol Hill, and we are no longer comfortable being silent.
More than 100 congressional staffers recently staged a walkout, and hundreds of federal political appointees and staffers signed a letter demanding President Biden pursue an Israeli ceasefire and take immediate action to end Palestinian casualties. In another instance, a top CIA official posted a pro-Palestinian image to her Facebook page. A public political statement former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says is unacceptable.
I'm struggling for words because it is so far out of bounds, right? It is so disconnected from the fundamental role that they have.
Over in the House, a vote Tuesday on legislation reaffirming Israel's right to exist and condemning Hamas did not receive unanimous support. Representative Cori Bush, a Democrat from Missouri, refused to vote for either measure, and Representative Rashida Tlaib of Michigan voted present for the resolution, which centered on Israel's existence. Jenna Browder, CBN News, Washington.
Well, joining us now for more on this is Rabbi Yitzhak Adlerstein of the Simon Wiesenthal Center. Rabbi, just thank you so much for being with us. Let's get right to it. Senator Schumer is calling it a five-alarm fire that must be extinguished. How do we put this fire of anti-Semitism out?
The only way to put it out is for good people to speak up and not be silenced by the mob. You know, the Jewish people at the moment are very, very lonely. We're used to that for a couple of thousand years of history, but and we're willing to go it alone in Israel. We know, as the saying goes in Israel, "Ein lanu eretz acheret." We don't have any other place to go, and that's become more clear in the weeks since October 7th. But one thing that we'd really appreciate is feeling the difference between this time and every time before. When we were alone in the past, we had God, but we had no human beings on our side at all. And now things are very, very different. You thanked me, Gordon, but I can't begin to thank you and other like-minded Christians for standing behind us, for refusing to be lured away by the images from Gaza and the pat slogans that have seduced so many other people, all built on a basis of, well, the world loves dead Jews, but not live ones. What I'd really like to see, and I'm hoping this message gets through to our viewers, is Jews right now are feeling very lonely, especially outside of Israel. Here, there's amazing sense of unity. But in the United States, in the UK, certainly in other places in Europe, Jews have been marginalized. The friends that they thought they had for many decades have disappeared. What I'd like to see is for people like you to just give a hug, give a word of reassurance to Jews that you know, and tell them, hey, it's pretty awful what's going on, but I want you to know it's not like it was in the old days. Many of us are really standing behind you. We recognize the difference between good and evil. We understand that a voice for a ceasefire means, Israel, too bad. You have these maniacs living next door to you, but get real, live with it. You know, they've pledged that there are going to be more and more October 7th, a second, a third, a fourth. Hey, that's tough. You know, you've got to be more precise. Not only precise in the way you conduct the war, but don't conduct it at all. Let there be a permanent ceasefire, which means keeping killers alive. Now, we're not ready for a suicide pact. And some people, your people, conservative Christians primarily, understand that. And just be reassuring to the Jews around you and say, we're still on your side. We recognize the justice of what you're trying to do, and we stand with you. You don't know how much of a difference that can make in the lives of Jews in America today.
Well, we absolutely stand with you, and we absolutely join you in the call. Hamas should not exist anymore. They have crossed, saying they crossed a line doesn't do it any justice. They have done something so horrific. They should not exist anymore. And I've said it before on the show. I'm going to say it again. Any call for a ceasefire is just an excuse for Hamas to reload. We shouldn't allow them that. They're on the run now, and they need to be eliminated. They should not exist anymore. Let's talk about anti-Semitism on the college campuses right here in America. We've got the Anti-Defamation League saying 75% of Jewish college students here in America say they have experienced or witnessed anti-Semitism on campus. And what should college presidents be doing to protect Jewish students?
Mostly two things. One is to enforce their own rules, federally required rules of safeguarding different populations on campus. They've been loath to do that. They've refused to do that. Take MIT, for example, where the administration admitted that students participating in a particular anti-Israel protest were violating campus rules, the kind that a violation that called for suspension. And then they said, well, we're not really going to press that because some of them may get in trouble because they're not American citizens and they could be sent back to the countries of their origin. This is not just a Jewish problem, Gordon. There's something so fundamentally wrong on campus, and that's the other thing that they should be doing, which is an overhaul of the entire system in which people are not educated to think, and where professors, because they're tenured, use their bully pulpit just to indoctrinate, essentially, a generation of younger people. This is appalling not only to us, but it should be appalling to every American to think that the leaders of America in a few years are people who really can't think straight. They don't research things. They're not aware of the fundamental arguments on both sides. They just repeat stock phrases. That is scary.
I have one that said they ought to be deported. I mean, if you're here on some kind of education visa and you use that as an opportunity to persecute American citizens, well, then absolutely you should leave. There shouldn't be any mercy for that, and it's mind-boggling that a university president will say, well, we can't do that because they might be deported. Well, you ought to take the position they should be deported. They shouldn't be here. I will say there's been a strong pushback. One of the roles I have is as a president of a university. I put out a strong anti-Semitism statement, and it was absolutely horrific to see the social media comments that came. There just seems to be this organized group on the internet being very active to put out the propaganda. I used to think it was just part of the boycott, divestment, sanction movement. It was primarily out of London. Now it seems to be worldwide. Do you have any idea how this is being funded and how it's being coordinated?
We don't yet. There are some smoking guns, but nothing to reliably be able to point the finger at yet. And I hope you're right, Gordon, because there is a competing theory, one which personally sounds a lot more accurate to me, and that is that anti-Semitism, the oldest bigotry on the face of the earth, never really disappeared and probably never really diminished as much as we would have wanted it to. It went underground for 7 decades after the Holocaust, mostly out of guilt or of a remembrance of what the Holocaust was about. But once people let the genie out of the bottle, once it became okay to publicly say, Israel, they're racist, they're colonialist, the next step was to say, it's the Jews again. And there are millions of people out there who are unconscious anti-Semites, which I think is more of a problem than those people who will say, yeah, I'm ready to send Jews back to the gas chambers. Unconscious anti-Semitism means that you just subconsciously really don't like Jews. How else would you understand, Gordon, the taking to the street of ordinary Americans, not those who are here on foreign visas, with the passion that they have about the casualties in Gaza? I'm trying to recall whether there was anything similar, and the answer is no, there wasn't, when Assad killed 500,000 to 600,000 civilians in Syria, left 13 million people as refugees, many of them still living in tents. Why did the world not get upset? They knew what was going on. We saw the images. We heard the voices coming from Mosul as civilians were hunkering down, and many of them didn't make it. But they're forgotten. Why did we not hear a protest against the United States for participating in the liberation of Mosul that killed 25,000 civilians? 25,000 civilians. The only way I can come to grips with it, Gordon, is that, well, you know, that's the price of war. And war is okay if it has to be fought until a better day. But in the meantime, Jews don't have that privilege.
Well, I'll go back to an old rabbinic teaching that in every generation a Haman arises, and this seems to be our time and our generation. How can Christians stand with you against this? It just seems to be, I'll call it for what I think it is. I think it's satanic. How can we stand with you?
So we're looking at a wave of sentiment, and waves can be broken. That's why we have breakwaters near our harbors. I don't want anybody out there to do anything dangerous, but when you hear this kind of talk, when you see it, where possible, question people about it. Put their feet to the fire. Do you know where Israel is? Do you know its history? Do you know how many offers Israel made? Do you know how many times, as you said before, the Arabs said no? How after 1967 and the June War and Israel, together with the United States and Russia, were ready to put together a comprehensive peace package, and instead at Khartoum, you got the 3 no's: no recognition, no negotiations, no peace. How many people know that? So please familiarize yourself with facts. Personally, I'd prefer that you weren't just raising the flag of Israel out of a sense of of biblical responsibility. I think the Bible wants us to understand, as the Bible says in Deuteronomy, you should know and return these things to your heart, which means to understand their truths. Familiarize yourself with the facts and be advocates for Israel and for Jews.
Well, I hadn't intended this, but since you've teed it up, we've done that here at CBN. There are two films that I encourage all our viewers to get so you can get that understanding. One is called The Hope, and it shows the history through the biographies of the founders of the modern state of Israel. The other one is Whose Land Is It?, where we deal with both the Palestinian claims and the Jewish claims. You can have that education if you're willing to invest just 3 hours of your time. We'll give it to you for a gift of any dollar amount. All you have to do to get it and get informed so that you can stand with Israel, call us, 1-800-700-7000. And Rabbi, thank you. We stand with you. We want people educated. We want the people to be able to effectively defend Israel. And thank you for your strong stance, and thank you for being our friend.
Thank you for all that you've done for us.